Isabella was sunshine in human form. Her laughter, like the river beside her village, flowed without end. Her eyes, the blue of forget-me-nots, held a spark of mischief. She moved with the grace of a willow in the wind, her dark hair a flowing current. Isabella was the heart of her village, a tiny speck on the map, nestled between a whispering river and a sheltering forest. Life in the village was simple, untouched by the complexities of the world beyond. Days were spent tending to crops, evenings were filled with shared stories and laughter, and always at the heart of it all was Isabella. She was a weaver of words, a spinner of tales. Her voice, clear as a bell, could soothe the most troubled soul. From a young age, Isabella possessed a gift. Words poured from her like sunlight, painting vivid pictures in the minds of those who listened. She spoke of the river's gentle song, the forest's ancient secrets, the simple joys and sorrows of their life. Her words resonated with the villagers, echoing their own feelings, their own connection to the land. Word of Isabella's gift spread beyond the sheltering trees of their village. Her talent was not just a secret kept within the confines of their small community, it was a beacon that drew attention from far and wide. Travelers, weary from their journeys, would stop by, drawn by the promise of her enchanting tales. They came from distant lands, their faces etched with the fatigue of long travels, but their eyes sparkled with anticipation. They would leave refreshed, their hearts lighter, carrying with them the echo of her words. The stories she wove were like a balm to their souls, a gentle reminder of the beauty and wonder that still existed in the world. Isabella's poetry became their solace, their connection to something pure and true. Her words were like a bridge connecting the mundane to the magical, the ordinary to the extraordinary. She never wrote her poems down. They were not meant to be captured on paper, but to be experienced in the moment, to be felt and remembered. They were ephemeral, existing only in the moment of their creation. Each recital was unique, a fleeting masterpiece that lived in the hearts of those who heard it. The villagers cherished these moments, committing her words to memory, repeating them to their children. Her stories became a part of their heritage, passed down through generations. Isabella's poetry became the village's shared history, its laughter and tears woven into verse. Her words were the threads that held the fabric of their community together. The villagers called her their nightingale. It was a name that suited her, for her voice was as melodious and enchanting as the bird's song. Her voice, they said, was as beautiful and captivating as the bird's song. It had the power to soothe the troubled mind and uplift the weary spirit. They came to her with their joys and their sorrows, their hopes and their fears. She was more than a storyteller. She was a confidant, a keeper of their secrets. She listened, her heart brimming with empathy, and then she would speak. Her words were like a mirror, reflecting their innermost thoughts and feelings, and in her words they found solace, understanding, a reflection of their own humanity. Her stories were a reminder that they were not alone, that their experiences were shared by others. It was a life of simple beauty, of shared moments and quiet happiness. The village thrived on these connections, on the bonds forged through shared stories and experiences. Isabella, surrounded by the love of her village and the beauty of nature, knew nothing else. She was content. Her life was a tapestry of simple joys and profound connections. Or so it seemed, until the day a stranger arrived at their village, a stranger who would change everything. This stranger brought with him a different kind of story, one that would challenge the very fabric of their peaceful existence. He arrived with the setting sun, casting long shadows across the village. His silhouette a stark contrast against the fiery sky, a figure both mysterious and intriguing. Alaric, he called himself, a poet, a traveller, a collector of stories. His knapsack was filled with notebooks, each page brimming with tales from distant lands. He was tall and handsome, with eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of 1,000 journeys. His thoughtful expression hinted at the depth of his experiences. His voice, deep and resonant, spoke of faraway lands and extraordinary experiences. It was a voice that commanded attention, that drew people in. The villagers welcomed him with open arms, curious about the stranger who had wandered into their midst. They offered him food, shelter, and the warmth of their companionship. They were eager to hear his stories, to learn about the world beyond their village. Alaric, in turn, captivated them with stories of his travels, painting vivid pictures with his words. He spoke of bustling cities and ancient ruins, of places that seemed almost mythical to the villagers. He described cultures vastly different from their own, sharing tales of traditional ceremonies and dances that left the villagers in awe. He spoke of renowned poets and their celebrated works, of the beauty and power of poetry. He told them of the power of words to move nations and change destinies, inspiring them with his passion. It wasn't long before Alaric found his way to Isabella, a young woman known for her own poetic talents. He was drawn to her, he claimed, by the whispers of her talent that had reached even his distant corner of the world. They met by the river, a place of tranquility and inspiration. He sat with her by the river, listening intently as she spoke of the rustling leaves and the moon's reflection on the water. Her words painted pictures as vivid as his own. He praised her talent, calling her a natural-born poet, a rare gem hidden away from the world. His words were sincere, filled with admiration. Isabella, flattered by his attention, found herself confiding in him. She felt a connection, a bond formed through their shared love of words. She shared her poems, her dreams, her deepest thoughts. She spoke of her aspirations, of the places she longed to see, and the stories she wished to write. She felt understood by him, seen in a way she hadn't before. In Alaric, she found a kindred spirit, someone who appreciated the beauty of her words and the depth of her soul. Together they walked along the riverbank, sharing stories and dreams, their voices blending with the sounds of nature. It was a meeting of minds, a union of hearts, brought together by the magic of poetry. As night fell, the village was bathed in the soft glow of the stars. Alaric and Isabella continued to talk, their words weaving a tapestry of dreams and possibilities. When it was time for Alaric to leave, he promised to return. Isabella watched him go, her heart filled with hope and inspiration. She knew that their paths would cross again, that their shared love of poetry would bring them together once more. Inspired by their meeting, Isabella returned to the river, her notebook in hand. She wrote with renewed passion, her words flowing like the river itself. She was no longer just a poet from a small village. She was a poet with a story to tell, a story of a poet from afar who had touched her heart and ignited her soul. Alaric left the village as suddenly as he had arrived. He promised to return to share the stories of their travels together. Isabella, her heart alight with a newfound hope, eagerly awaited his return. She dreamt of a world beyond her village, a world where her words could touch countless lives. Months turned into a year, and still there was no sign of Alaric. Then one day, a traveler passing through the village brought news. He spoke of a rising star in the world of poetry, a young man named Alaric, whose verses were captivating audiences across the land. The traveler recited a few lines, and Isabella's blood ran cold. They were her words, her poems, stolen and presented as his own. Alaric had taken her heart, her trust, and her very essence, weaving them into a tapestry of lies that was bringing him fame and recognition. The betrayal hit Isabella with the force of a physical blow. The world around her, once so vibrant and alive, lost its color. The river's song sounded like a mournful dirge. The forest, once a source of comfort, now seemed to press in on her, suffocating her with its silence. Isabella retreated into herself, her laughter silenced. The once vibrant melodies that echoed through the village were now replaced by an eerie stillness. Her voice, which had been a source of joy and comfort, was now a distant memory, her light extinguished. The villagers, sensing her pain, watched helplessly as their beloved nightingale faded away. They tried to reach her, to offer words of comfort, but their efforts were met with silence. Their hearts ached as they saw the spark in her eyes dim, replaced by a hollow emptiness. The vibrant young woman who had once been the heart of their village was gone. Her laughter, which had once been the soundtrack of their lives, was now a haunting absence. The village celebrations felt incomplete without her radiant presence, replaced by a ghost of her former self. Her silence was a tangible presence, a heavy weight that settled over the village, smothering their joy. The once lively streets were now filled with whispers and hushed tones, as if the village itself was mourning. A heavy weight that settled over the village, smothering their joy. The river seemed to flow slower, its song tinged with sorrow, mirroring the grief that had settled over them. The once clear waters now seemed murky, reflecting the collective sadness of the villagers. its song tinged with sorrow, mirroring the grief that had settled over them. They cursed Alaric, their anger a pale reflection of the pain he had inflicted upon their beloved Isabella. But their anger was useless, a futile attempt to find solace in their suffering. Their anger a pale reflection of the pain he had inflicted upon their beloved Isabella. But their anger was useless, their curses falling on deaf ears. Alaric was gone, lost to them, leaving behind a trail of devastation that threatened to consume them all, their curses falling on deaf ears. Alaric was gone, lost to them, leaving behind a trail of devastation that threatened to consume them all. And through it all, Isabella remained silent. Her silence was a constant reminder of the void left by Alaric's betrayal, lost to them, leaving behind a trail of devastation that threatened to consume them all. And through it all, Isabella remained silent. The words that had once flowed from her so effortlessly were now trapped within, a dam of pain holding them captive. The words that had once flowed from her so effortlessly were now trapped within, a dam of pain holding them captive. The villagers mourned not only for Isabella's lost joy, but for the silence of their nightingale, a silence that spoke volumes of her shattered spirit. They longed for the days when her voice would fill the air with hope and happiness, a dam of pain holding them captive. The villagers mourned not only for Isabella's lost joy, but for the silence of their nightingale, a silence that spoke volumes of her shattered spirit. They longed for the days when her voice would fill the air with hope and happiness. The village, once a place of laughter and song, was now a shadow of its former self. But for the silence of their nightingale, a silence that spoke volumes of her shattered spirit. The village, once a place of laughter and song, was now a shadow of its former self. The villagers clung to the hope that one day Isabella would find her voice again, and with it, the village would be restored to its former glory. Until then, they waited, their hearts heavy with sorrow for the return of their beloved nightingale.